Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Webinar Talk Show. My name is Tom Singer.
And I'm Liz Green. And as we have been doing these over the last week and a half, we've been highlighting things that Tom and I know are best practices in terms of putting on a virtual or a hybrid event. I was talking to a client this morning about planning her first virtual event, and she is super nervous about how this is going to go on. And what I was able to do is say, it's okay. Tom and I have a playbook for this. And I could just hear the sort of stress release that she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. We actually know what the wheel looks like.
Well, and one of the things is that sometimes I've talked to a couple clients and they think, well, we'll just arrange it exactly like our live conference. We'll just have an hour keynote and then another hour breakout and then another hour keynote. And I'm like, oh no, a virtual event is different, not grossly different, but certainly different. And the audience has different needs and expectations.
Absolutely true. And our guest today actually is an expert in many things, but one of them is about adult learning. And I'm excited to talk to her about what that means for online learning that we're all doing right now.
So our guest worked for several major universities and has been a professional speaker now for well over a decade. And Jessica Pettitt is joining us here on the Webinar Talk Show. So Jessica, welcome. Yay! Thanks for being here.
Ta-da! Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Well, and for all disclosure, Jessica is one of mine and Eliz's best friends in the world. So when we were deciding who we wanted to have come on here, we knew that the most fun we were going to have was if we invited Jessica to be one of the guests.
Plus, I work.
Plus, she works for free. Absolutely.
Also true. For us, let's be clear. You don't work for everyone for free.
Sell books at the end, right?
It's for exposure, Jess.
That's right. That's right. We'll make sure we give you a Starbucks card at the end.
Oh, blush.
$4.
Here's the thing. We are all educating people in a different environment right now. Based on what you know in terms of how adults learn and your experience both live and virtual, what are the stumbling blocks that we're coming up against?
So I have two right off the bat, and I want to clarify, I think that these are stumbling blocks. Teachers who have been forced to put their classes online, teachers who have been teaching online prior to the pandemic, speakers, people who have online courses, instructors, trainers, facilitators. I think we need to be reminded of one thing, and then this is the stumbling block. So may I have permission to do both?
You have
Yes,
permission.
you do.
Permission granted. Number one is clarity is kindness.
Ooh.
So maybe possibly like hypothetically, if there was a global pandemic, it's important to remember that you are not the only person going through this. So like the metaphor that I like to use, which is a little close to my heart and may possibly generate tears, but if a flight were delayed, what ends up happening is you think your flight has been delayed instead of the other 300 people whose flight has also been delayed.
Yes.
In the middle of that hypothetical situation that I have no idea when I will ever be joyous enough to experience again, clarity is kindness. This flight ain't happening, right? Not like it's not happening in the next 20 minutes. It might be happening from B11, JK, not for the next 20 minutes. So what ends up happening is we dribble out our intention of teaching in this way because we are not clear, therefore we are not being kind. So don't overcomplicate it. Less bells and whistles. I will take the cart with the Funyuns on it. But other than that, clarity is kindness. So as you start an online course or continue an online course in an environment where we are definitely not clear and there's a lot of unknowns, the kindest thing you can do is say, here is the structure. This is what I expect from you as an instructor. This is how you can talk to me as a student or a participant in the course. And this is how we will make adjustments if we make adjustments. Clarity is kindness. Please remember that.
That's an excellent reminder.
Yeah. If inside of clarity, we're very clear, crystal, what we are doing, how we are doing it, what we're going to do, we don't invent a new bell and whistle because we watched a bunch of YouTube videos and found out what this button does, right? Then the mistake everybody makes around adult learning is there are 3 different steps into like new information to, oh, I understand and get this now. The 3 steps is making a point, practicing that point, and then allowing the person you are teaching to apply that point into their own life, no matter how it looks. So what specifically as speakers, often when we are giving a keynote or a workshop, we make our point. That's usually like, we think it's the thesis. It's not the 3 things or the PowerPoint slides and the bullets, but like, why are you standing there? That's the point. Great. You can have more than one of those, but it is funny that sometimes we forget that part. Why are we here? Make a point. The practice often is stories, metaphors, similar to what I did about to a canceled flight. I was introducing a new concept. Look at this role modeling. Clarity is kindness. Give me a practice, when your flights are delayed and it's all ambiguous and frustrating. Don't do that, then apply, right?
Right.
So application is now that we've practiced, shut up and let them figure out what this module or this content or this point has to do with their life, then move on to the next point. You don't make all your points at once, and you don't just stand up there or sit in a chair and practice all over everybody. And you also don't say, so, how are you doing? Because that's therapy.
So Jess, everybody has been sort of thrust into this digital world, whether they wanted to go there or not, both on the learning side and as the instructor/speaker side. What are the big differences that you think that maybe people are overlooking? What's the biggest problem?
I really do think that it's a lack of clarity, ultimately. So even coming up with point, practice, and application, people are like, oh yeah, sure, I totally do that. Really? Tell me about it. No, I promise I do it. Yeah, sure. So why don't you tell me about that? And what is amazing is that, again, as keynoters, as speakers, right, we are in the practice section all day long. How much time you want, I will fill it up. But we fill it up with practice. It is clarifying, and because y'all know me so well, you're welcome to roll your eyes and or point your fingers at me. But sometimes we get lost in the laughs and the connection, and we don't really know, what is the thread? Why did I put on Spanx today? There's a thing I haven't done in a while. So without the clarity of what your point is, not your point, not the collection, but one point at a time, without the clarity of that, it is very confusing, specifically in an online setting, because I was helping someone yesterday on a Zoom call, and he was panicking because he's very unfamiliar with Zoom. And I eventually said, hands up. Like, put your hands like this. You're panic clicking, and you have co-host abilities. So if you panic click in the wrong place, this is going to broadcast out to all the attendees. Put your hands up. So then his hands were up, good listeners, right? And I was like, this is what I need you to do. I'm going to show you and tell you what to do with your PowerPoints so that when you share your screen, it works. Good? And he's like, put your hands up. So that's what I mean by clarity, right? Like, don't panic click. And your participants, think of it like defensive driving. There is a very good chance, no matter how riveting you are, this right now, this is not the only screen open on someone's computer. It is true.
Ruth.
Yeah, that's not happening. Okay, great. So let them multitask. So then one of the things I really liked about another class I was taking yesterday is someone said, all right, this is the important part. And then you're like, oh, wait, hold on, let me find that window, right? But you need to, if you know what your point is, and you know that they don't know that, then you're clear in giving it to them, You can pontificate a little bit about the point and then pull them back, clearly allowing them, okay, now what does this mean for you? And it doesn't just mean self-reflection questions or like write a postcard to someone who made a difference to you. That's not what I mean by like a call to action. As much as it is, how did you internalize this to make sense? So like in the medical field, you would call this teaching back or listening back. So when you tell someone how to take medicine, you then ask them, okay, now what do you do? And then right. That makes sense if it's like a heavy narcotic or something, but it's the same thing when you're making a point about how to share your screen on Zoom. Okay, this is what I said. Keep your hands up. What did I say?
Right. Don't do it yet.
Right.
Yes. I have a pen in my hand. I am making so many good notes on this. Appreciate it very much. What have you on it? Totally on it. And I also know that it would be
Starbucks.
I know. But when the day comes, there is a chai soy latte in your future. For sure.
There's a chai soy latte in my hand because I have a spot and some time.
Woohoo! Perfect segue to the next thing I wanted to talk about, as a matter of fact.
I knew what was coming because I was clearly prepped before you hit record.
Yeah, so preparation, knowing clarity, what are we going to talk about today? One of the things that Tom talks about that I really like is try new things. And there is some synergy thing going on here because the thing that Tom most recently tried as his new thing is stand-up comedy, which is something you're steeped in. The thing that the result of doing this is I have noticed Tom has always been good at identifying a situation where he can put a comment in, or basically being good on his feet. He is so much better at it now, like spectacularly good at it. It's a quality that you both share. Talk a little bit about why it's important to try new things and what putting yourself out there in that sort of manner does for your ability, not only on a platform, but in this particular kind of environment. And both y'all can talk.
Well, I'll go ahead and just tag onto that. Thank you for that compliment. And I agree. When people ask me what I've learned the last 2 years and almost 100 open mic nights, I would have hit 100 open mic nights if we hadn't been quarantined and open mic nights came to a halt. I did do a few virtual ones, but they didn't fill my soul the way a live open mic night did. So I kind of pulled back on doing those. But what I've learned, the biggest thing that I've learned in that time has been that self-confidence, I don't think is the right word because I was always confident, but one of my clients described it in a way that I went, oh yeah. And that was, they said that I was more playful on stage. Like you said, if I found an opportunity to say something, in the past, I might've been like, oh, is that appropriate? Should I say that? Should I not say it? And by the time my mind finished, the opportunity had passed. Where now, both in a social situation and when I'm speaking, I'm a little bit more apt to throw something in. I know I'm not going to say anything dirty or wrong most of the time, but but I'm willing to risk that because I know the value of being able to think on your feet. And what I've found is that humor is some of the best interactivity you can have in a speech.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the interesting thing coming from me is let's talk about how capitalism works. The key on try new things, most of us focus on new, right? Which is like something we've never done before. Oh, well, now I'm intimidated. What have I never done before? Like, oh, that's too scary. I've never done it. Yes, that's the point. The things is like, is it new or big enough, right? Like for some people, making eye contact and saying, I love you too is a thing that is terrifying. So I would rather go hang gliding above a shark pond, right? Like we can define thing in a lot of different ways. But in my work, the concept of trying, and more importantly, trying to try, is about taking that little leaning in, that like first step, and it's a momentum builder. What stand-up comedy does is you are literally in a lineup of people who are like leaning and it could bomb. Statistically speaking, significantly likely to bomb or at least fall flat. And every once in a while, it doesn't. And the irony is when it doesn't, most of the time, you don't even know what you said because it was a one-liner you weren't planning on saying, right? Like it's a very unstable place to be trying to try new things. But in a team setting or in a work setting, we call this innovation. So what I think stand-up comedy teaches you is failure and rejection is absolutely part of the application of what point you are trying to make, right? So back to my adult learning thing, look at me weaving them together. When I tell managers and supervisors that you are not creating a workplace that values failure, or more toxic, the popular kids get to fail, but everyone else doesn't get to fail. They can't try new things because you're not encouraging me to be creative. You're not encouraging me to truly be innovative. What you're encouraging me to do is like drink at my desk and try things out until maybe all the big failures go and now we're just at baby failures, which is terrible for my confidence. And stand-up comedy, you are naked and hopefully not really.
I'm going to do that next time.
No.
No.
Yeah, luckily that was a video off. The nakedness and the lack of supervision that I think is behind that corded mic doesn't allow you to do anything but free fall. And you're working towards the bomb because then we all sit around and like, why did it bomb? Why did it fall flat? Why did it? Oh my God, somebody laughed. Somebody laughed at that? What did I say? What? Why was I talking about Tupperware? Like that problem can happen, but you've already done it.
And so the other thing with the comedy is that I couldn't have just done one open mic night and learned everything that I learned over 100 open mic nights. This was something that I had to make muscle memory of being willing to try new things, to bomb, and to put myself in that vulnerable position. And it's funny because I started teaching this concept of try new things before I started doing the comedy, which sort of got me stuck into it when I got invited to do the open mic night. And I said, no. My friend said, aren't you the guy who teaches try new things? And I was like, yes, I am. However, what's interesting is as we go in and now have been in for 6 weeks into this quarantine and this work from home, this whole concept of try new things has suddenly been thrust upon everybody. Because I don't think there's a person watching this interview who hasn't had to try something new in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah. It's absolutely true.
Ultimately, again, let me pull this together, right? Is that if clarity is kindness, you also need to be clear with yourself. And where we say the word unprecedented all the time, any new thing is unprecedented by definition, right? Like it's new because you haven't done it before. By definition, it has to be something you haven't done before. And the clarity of that's actually the edge you're going to. You're not going towards perfection or success or nailing it, but being brave enough to try something that you're terrible at and then deciding, do you still want to do this? Like, I think I've been bread making, which is false. I have been brick making.
Yes.
But 3 weeks ago, I didn't know how to boil water. And I'm like remembering things about chemistry as much as I'm remembering things about stand up on the stage. And that failure is part of the learning process. And you have to stay in the failure as much as in the successes, because that's where the clarity comes from. That's where the kindness comes to yourself. And occasionally, at least your dogs will eat it.
So in case you didn't notice what Jess did over this whole process, she was picking threads and pulling them together and constantly weaving it back together and referring back to what had happened before. And then she pulled it all together for us, put it in a little nice, lovely bow, like a professional gift wrapper, and then presented us with the content all wrapped up in this pretty package that we could go, oh yes, right. Clarity with myself. I'm going to practice and then I'm going to implement it. Beautiful little package. In the event you are planning an event, whether it's on the stage or it's in a virtual platform.
I look forward to when people are planning them on stage again.
That would be
I am
great.
so looking forward to that.
But if you actually want your people to if you actually want people to remember what has been provided at your conference, getting somebody like Jess to close your conference, not only is she going to send them away with amazing content of her own, she's going to pull all of the threads of everything that has come in the day, week, whatever it was, wrap it up in this beautiful bow and present it to your people in a way that they will remember for years. So there you go. Not surprising she was able to pull that all together for us.
So Jessica, if someone's watching this and they do need someone to sort of pull all those threads together for some learning, for a conference, etc., how do people get in touch with you? Where do they find Jessica Pettitt?
Well, interestingly, you can go to Jess Pettitt. There are 4 T's, although I own all the misspellings as well. JessPettitt.com is my new fancy schmancy website. And, or you can write these 3 words on a Post-it note, make a point, practice, and apply it. That's all it is. Or you can have me do it for you. Happy to.
So if you don't know what the wheel looks like, contact one of us. We can help you find how that wheel works. Absolutely.
And I think that when we look at learning, sometimes we do get caught in sort of that old format that there has to be some guru on stage who talks for an hour. And what Eliz and I have been trying to put into practice through the Webinar Talk Show is to show everybody that a webinar doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 25 or 30 minutes, and it doesn't have to be a talking head over PowerPoint. I believe, and I think Eliz will agree, that the interview format allows an expert like Jess to come and share their brilliance without just having to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. So we would love to talk to you about the Webinar Talk Show and how we can make your conference or your webinars into a produced show.
Absolutely. You can find us at webinartalkshow.com. And of course, you could like us on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show. We're looking forward to having more great guests over the week. Jess, thank you for coming and sharing your brilliance with us today. As always, it's a major treat. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.